we often hear the phrase a knower of Brahman, and a lot of people don't know what that actually means. First of all, we have to understand what Brahman means itself, right? So in Sanskrit, Brahman means the ultimate reality, that undifferentiated state of the ultimate substratum of existence, right? And within us, we have something that's identical with that, which is the Atman, which is actually undifferentiated consciousness. So this is even beyond the concept of a soul, beyond the concept of ego and personality, something that's innate to our being. And Brahman itself is beyond the idea of a creator God, right? And so that's why when people of Abrahamic beliefs come across to Sanatana Dharma and they come across this type of word, it's hard for them to relate because it's not a creator God, it's something that's completely impersonal and beyond the scope of right and wrong, good and bad, or having blessed followers, sin and the ones who don't sin and so forth and so on, right? And so, but in Sanatana Dharma, we have this phrase, someone who knows Brahman, right? And so what we should talk about is sort of what that actually means and also how we can become also a knower of Brahman, right?
Yeah, I think to understand the phrase the knower of Brahman, we need to understand a lot of the Sanskrit terminology in Vedanta. Like you mentioned, Atman, and to be able to understand Atman, we need to understand Jiva, and also we need to understand Maya as well. I think those four terminologies is most important and very foundation of understanding and studying Vedanta, I think. And like you said, we find it difficult at the beginning when we come across this knowledge, right? Because a lot of us coming from very materialistic frame of mind, and Christianity is like that. The monotheistic religions are like that because you can see the shape of God and you pray to them and whatnot. So everything is somewhat, everything is existing in the material realm, right? But in Vedanta, everything is immaterial. That's why I find it a lot of people misunderstand these concepts. And they think they understood the knowledge, but actually probably they don't understand these concepts in a proper way, right?
That's right.
They would always refer to their materialistic frame of mind, implying to this metaphysical wisdom, right? So I think that's something we need to understand. We need to fully come into immaterial frame of mind and try to approach immaterial point of view, then this terminology will be understood correctly.
That's right. It's a metaphysical language that we need to sort of gain literacy in to understand this type of deeper immaterial layer, like what you were saying. And this is why all the great teachers, philosophers and sages throughout history have always been drawn to Vedanta, because it's almost inspiring too when you start to understand this type of metaphysical language of this divine realm, that it opens up another gateway in life, right? Like that you never even, you didn't even know there was a gateway there. And then it's opened up this new vista of reality for you that you thought didn't exist. And so in you mentioning Jiva and Maya, right? So we'll clarify that, is that Jiva is like the ego persona system, right? So that's sort of what we are as a person, Guy Young, Jason, everyone listening and watching. It's the accumulative sense of self, right? That you've accumulated not just through this life, but through past lives, right? And that's made up of three aspects: samskaras, vasanas, and karma, right? So your samskaras are the subliminal imprints and mental impressions. That basically is your subconscious, right? It's your storehouse. It's like the basement of your being. And then the vasanas are the habits and tendencies that we have, these type of ingrained habits and tendencies. And then the karma is your action and unconscious actions. Yeah. And this is kind of the wheel of samsara framework, right? It's a feedback loop. Your actions reinforce your habits, and then your habits reinforce your actions, and it's this to and fro. It's a bidirectional loop, right? And so this keeps you in this cycle of samsara, and that's actually how the jiva comes back life after life after life, right? And so Maya, and like you said, with these four aspects of Brahman, Atman, Jiva, and Maya is the illusion of measurement, right? And so it's the illusion of dissecting the world into this and that according to the Jiva's conditioning. And so you don't actually see the reality as it is. You're essentially seeing an illusion. So Maya is like this superimposition on reality. And I think that concept can be understood even in a pretty general sense for a lot of people, right? But I don't think people wholeheartedly like sort of agree with that, or it's too difficult to follow, right? Because what does that imply? Well, that implies sincere self-work, right, on yourself, which a knower of Brahman does. So the knower of Brahman realizes that all of their projections and this and that was actually based on their accumulative sense of self, the jiva, the ego persona system. And so the reason why they come across conflict in their lives, the reason why they suffer in their lives is because of this kind of disconnect between their pure awareness and what they actually see, right? The pure awareness has been stained, has been polluted. Someone's thrown a snake in the grass, right? Or someone's thrown some oil in the water, and then it's polluted the entire water, and so then you can't see reality as it truly is. And so those four aspects build this type of framework to understand like a knower of Brahman. So we are fundamentally the Atman, which is Brahman, right? There's actually no separation there. The Atman itself is just like a distinction that this localization of consciousness that we call and refer to as Gayang has the Atman in her, and likewise do I and everyone else. But that's identical with Brahman. There's actually no separation between any of us.
That's right.
Because of that reason, even though we live our own personal lives on a subjective level, right? But the subjective level is where sometimes the suffering that comes from, because that's the jiva can slip under the door and take control of that subjective experience. And then we suffer because of our own projections of the world.
Yes, knower of Brahman, in that phrase, I think obviously, first of all, we need to know what that knower is. That's right? Like that's the main objective of that phrase itself. And I would say even like let's say, knower of Jiva, knower of Maya is actually not very different from the phrase of knower of Brahman, because that knower is actually the core object that we want to be and we want to embrace, right? And that's very tricky. Sometimes, like you said, that we get too much involved with our subjective point of view to the world and our subjective problems in our daily lives, that we get sucked back into this world and whatnot. So that's why in a book called The Book by Alan Watts, it's very actually a small book, but he concisely and very poetically and kind of even comical way that he mentions this knower of Brahman is kind of a game of a hide and seek kind of thing, right? Because that's what we go through every day and entire our life, and then hide and seek what we seek for and what's hiding behind and whatnot. And so when we say a knower of Jiva and knower of Maya also is that something that we need to think about, because before we even get into Atman and Brahman, a lot of people get stuck in the Jiva and Maya realm, right? Because often people understand Jiva in the misunderstanding as some sort of soul or something, and soul is somewhat still, I would say, materialistic explanation, in my opinion. And Jiva is, as you said, is a ego persona system, and even that, like, it's for a lot of people, some foreign language. What is that, Like, and the Maya is often a lot of people understand Maya as like a just this world, the material world, right? It's very one-dimensional understanding, and that's unfortunately actually a lot of people still think it that way. Maya is a literal interpretation, as an illusion, but illusion of what? We need more explanation and the context around it, right? So again, what's fascinating in Vedanta is that these terminologies can shape differently in terms of what you're speaking about, right? So Maya can be illusion as in materialistic sense, but what the Vedanta is really want to point out in terms of Maya is that our misconceptual way of seeing the world within our own mind. That's really what Maya is. So that it's got actually nothing to do with the material world.
No, it's the seer and the seen.
That's right. The seer, what's within the seer's mind is illusion, is the Maya, and that's what the Vedanta is trying to talk about.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And not too much concentrate on material world. Material world is simply there, right? How we interpret the material world shapes our subjective world, right? Hence, what's in our mind is Maya.
Yep.
That's something that we need to clarify, I think, because people like to just simply just say, "Oh, Maya means illusion," and that's it. What do you mean by that? You know, and that shapes the persona system, which is Jiva, and that with the, as you mentioned, with the three components of Wheel of Samsara framework is cyclically going round and round a circle, that while we are unaware of that system, it'll just repeat itself all the time. Nothing will change. But if we become aware of what our samskaras, vasanas, and what our actions are like, then from there that we can begin to work on ourselves.
That's right. Yeah, Maya is kind of like a virus in a system, isn't it? It's like a virus that's implanted in us as a consequence of the accumulation of Jiva, right? And so I like what you said. It's not an illusion per se. Like the material world, we could say, is real, to sort of try and bring a bit of clarity around the Vedantist concept of Maya. You can say that the physical world is real. We're talking more about the seer and the objects that are seen, and so it's a disconnect between what we see and how we interpret it, right? So it doesn't mean that it's a negative thing to have language and everything like this. Language is a public utility. It obviously is good to have. We're using language now to discuss deeper topics, right? But the problem is when we associate sort of a conditioned perspective to how we see the world, right? And so obviously that is really rife during the modern day, with the world being hyper-ideological and divided. And so a lot of people are doubling down on that, which is kind of strange, because even from a very general sense, when you sort of get out of your involvement with the world, you feel a lot more peace, right? When you sort of pull back from all of the noise that's happening in the world. You know, a person who hasn't come across spirituality, for example, they still feel peace, right? So there's something true there. They just don't have the framework. They don't have the conceptual understanding of what's going on here, right? And so I also like what you said when you said a knower of Jiva, a knower of Maya as well, because I guess, you know, we all know why a knower of Brahman is sort of glorified, because yes, we can have the knowing of our Jiva, right? We can know the Jiva, and we can see that it's a fundamental illusion. We can see that we can know that our perceptions are wrong. We can know that the Maya lens is not accurate. But knowing Brahman is something that's hard to abide in, because the power of Maya, right? The power of those perceptions, the power of the habit of sort of feeling comfortable in those perceptions of the world, rather than sort of peeling those layers back, you know. So that becomes, you know, a big problem for all of us on the spiritual path, because some people do have an experience of the ultimate reality, right? Like not an experience, a non-experience, let's say, of the ultimate reality, where they abide in it, but then they come back up for air and they easily slip back into the jiva and are confused by, again, the illusion of measurement, Maya, and they go back to just doing what they were doing before. There hasn't been a proper transformation. They haven't really experienced samadhi, right? They haven't had that the sort of meditative absorption in the Atman and the Brahman, which hasn't sort of cleaned their window of Maya, so they can see the pure rays of the sunshine, right? And so that becomes the big problem on the path for us. Yes, obviously the knower of Jiva, Maya, and Brahman is all the same knower, but it's having the ability to abide in the Brahman, that becomes the obstacle in the path.